Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ben and I'm a photographer based in North Wales. In my previous video I showed you precisely how I make my videos, and in this video I'm going to show you how I edit my videos. Let's jump into the computer. Okay, so the very first thing I do is dump my footage. I edit off a external SSD, which is this one here. It's the Samsung T5. I've already done this, but I'll go into my 2020 folder. Then 2004 is for April 2020. And I've already created a folder for April the 10th, which it is, and title it How I Make My Videos. In there I'll create different folders for the H5 audio, thumbnails, my A cam, and for B-roll. All I've got left to do is copy over a few thumbnail images, so I'll do that now. And then once I've got everything in there, I'll copy all of that onto my main backup drive. So same again, I have a 2020 folder, in there 2004, and then copy the whole thing into there. Okay, so once we've backed up all our footage, we can get rid of that. We're going to open Final Cut Pro. Yes, I do edit in Final Cut Pro rather than Premiere or DaVinci Resolve. The simple answer to that is I started off in iMovie, which was free when I got my first MacBook, and Final Cut was the obvious choice after that. I really like the magnetic timeline, and I got it cheap as well as part of a student bundle. So can't complain with that really. So from here we are going to go to File and New Library. This is just for this video, so I'm going to date it 2004-10, and then How I Make Videos, and that is in the Final Cut Pro folder on the Samsung T5. Obviously you can put it wherever you want. So now I'm going to straight away delete the Smart Collection, and I'll rename the default event to B-roll. And then I can use Option N to create another new event. So I'll call that one A cam. And then I tend to always create my project in the A cam folder. So even though I've shot mainly in 4K, I always edit in 1080 at 25 frames per second to match my footage, rendering in ProRes 422 and stereo in 48 kHz. So okay, to create that project, and as you can see there, that is inside the A cam folder. So I'm just going to make a couple more folders, one for H5 audio, and then we can untick the create new project because we've already made our project, and those three should do me for now. So in the A cam folder, I'm going to import media from the T5, and going to look through our folders for the A cam footage. There they are, there's 4 files there. Now I tend to create optimized media. This means that my media is transcoded into ProRes 422, which also being in Final Cut Pro makes it a lot easier to actually work with. I used to create proxies all the time, but since I've had this machine, I've not needed it. But if you're on a slower machine, it may well be worth your while creating proxy media, which will basically give you a smaller, lower res version of your files to work with. It just puts less strain on your machine. So then we'll import the selected media, and up in the top left you can see there that media is being transcoded right now. While that's working, we can start importing the other stuff as well. So we'll have a look for our B-roll. There we go. Again, create optimized. And then the same with the H5 external audio. I'll also note that I leave the files in place. I don't copy them to the Final Cut Pro folder because I've already decided where I want my files to be. And now we just wait for all that to be transcoded. This can take a little bit of time, but I find that it helps you save time in the long run. Okay, so all of that has just finished transcoding. I always start off by syncing my footage. So to start with, I'm going to use Option N to create another event, which I'm just going to call sync. This is going to be for my synchronized footage. So if we go onto the main library, we can see all of the footage in this library. Okay, so this first clip, the intro clip, this was just using the microphone on the camera. So there's no audio to sync on that one. So we can drag that straight down onto the project. I like to make my timeline a little bit bigger than that, so I can see what's going on. And all of this is B-roll. Okay, so to start with, I know personally that this video clip here is to be synced with this audio clip here. So I'm just going to hold on Command to select both the audio clip and the video clip. Then I'm just going to go into Clip and Synchronize Clips, move it into the sync event, and then hit OK. And then that will appear at the bottom of our viewer. And I should be able to drag that over and see that it is in sync. There we go, sorted. And then we just do that with all the other external audio clips. So this short little audio clip here, I'm pretty sure was with this long clip here. I do apologise if you can hear the rain right now. It is pouring down. That's because it was towards the end of the clip that I decided to hit record on the external recorder, just to show the difference between the external audio and the on-camera audio. So I'll do the same with those. Go into Clip, Synchronise Clips, and move it into sync. OK. And then we can double check with that one as well. You can see, because the external audio was only for a short amount of that video, it comes in here, and the rest of it is at the moment silent. But all we have to do is cut the clip using B for the blade tool, and then on the first part of the clip we go into audio and then click on storyline rather than connected. So on the desk itself, sorted. I'll also point out I'm usually editing video using headphones, but for this video I'm not. And audio is actually one of the first things that I look at. It's far easier to do when you've got the whole clip in one piece. You can easily go into your effects browser. I usually add a compressor under the levels. Welcome back to the channel. That sounds straight away much better. And I'll just adjust the volume so that none of my peaks are turning yellow. Basically, that means I'm not clipping. Now, even though I write scripts for most of my videos now, I still now and then completely forget my words. I'm restarting sentences. So I found the best method of video editing for me is ripple editing. So on my keyboard I've actually remapped the square brackets. So if we zoom in on this clip, I can show you exactly what I mean by that. So you can see the very start of the video is just empty space until I start talking. So using the cursor to pick where on my storyline I want to make the cut, I can just click the left bracket and it gets rid of all the footage before that point. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Today it's... Hi folks, welcome. And that was straight away an instance where I've had to repeat myself. So I can go even further along, move my cursor, click the left bracket. There we go. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ben, and today is a slightly different video. I'm going to make a video to show you how I make videos. So there's quite a big gap there. So what I'll usually do, I'll usually be using my blade tool by pressing B, and then very simply I can cut and then get rid of that empty space. And then I'll basically do that across my whole ACAM timeline before then starting to add B-roll. So let's crack on. The timeline of these clips is completely all over the place. Because I was trying to do 2 videos in one, and I was basically filming myself, the clips are a little bit all over. So this one will take a little more reshuffling compared to normal, but we'll get there. So my next job on this project is to use a load of B-roll which I shot of me setting up all different bits of equipment. I didn't record any audio during that because I'm going to do voiceovers describing what I'm using and what I'm doing with it. So the audio that you're hearing right now is from the Rode NTG 4 Plus again, plugged into the Zoom H5, which is plugged in right here to use as an audio interface on the iMac. This is a great way of doing voiceovers. So all you need to do is plug it in via USB, go into your system preferences, under sound, and then under input you have the option of internal microphone or H5. So I'm going to drag my big B-roll clip, which is this one first off. This is where I'm setting up my C-stand with lighting and whatnot. I'm going to drag that onto the timeline, and there is audio there, but I was literally just listening to music at the time and singing quite badly. So I'm going to detach the audio and then delete it. That means I don't have to worry about it at all. So I'm going to stop recording here so that I can do this voiceover. If you're wanting to add a voiceover as I'm doing here, it's not something that I do a great deal, but you can literally just choose on your timeline where you want to begin and then go up to the top into window and then record voiceover. This will give you the option of which microphone you want to use. So I'm going to choose system setting, and then because I'm using the H5 for the screen recording right now, it's not showing up here at all. So instead I'm going to use the built-in microphone. Check, check. Ooh. So obviously you probably heard quite a lot of feedback just then, but you can definitely see that the microphones are active. You can make sure that you're not peaking. You really don't want to do that. If you are peaking quite a lot, just talking normally, you can adjust your gain control. I just keep mine at 12 because I'm monitoring off the H5 anyway. You have the option here, count down to record. So then all we do is click record and it will count you down from 3, 2, 1. So the first thing that I do is have a coffee and then set up my lighting. I use a C-stand from Newer. There's nothing special about it, just a normal generic C-stand. And so on. So now that has created a new dialogue at the bottom there. We'll let that play through. So let's go. So the first thing that I do is have a coffee. And then obviously we can trim these to however we want it. Space. Yeah, let's go. So the first thing that I do is have a coffee. Obviously the internal microphones aren't the best, so I would suggest using an external microphone of some sort, but we can then adjust this audio clip as we would with any other. Let's try adding a compressor on there. So the first thing that I do is have a coffee and then set up my lighting. So that does sound better already, and that's exactly what I'm going to do with all my B-roll clips, and then I'll get back to you when I'm done. Okay, we are almost there. I've done all my voiceovers. I've never done so much voiceover in my life. Now what we're going to think about is the intro and outro to this video. So if you've seen my videos before, you'll know that it starts off as a blank screen with my Phantom Media logo at the bottom and then fades into the video. So to do that, we're going to go right back to the start of the video, and to enter just some blank footage, we're just going to go with Option W, and that creates a 3-second blank space. On there, I'm going to go into my YouTube library, which houses all my logos and whatnot. I'm going to find the logo I want, drag that on top of my timeline, roughly there. Then I'll click on my timeline to a certain point where I'm seeing my logo, click on my logo image, and this little box at the bottom left of the viewer, that is for my transform. There is a little drop down arrow there where you can choose between transform, crop and distort. We're going with transform, and we're just going to drag one of the corner points to shrink the logo, say about there. I'm not really too fussy about this stuff. And then move it down to the bottom of the frame as well, and click done. So now if we play that back, it is a little bit abrupt.
Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is...
As is the video itself. So this is where we're going to go into our transitions browser on the far right over here, and I always just use cross dissolve. It's a classic and with good reason. So I'm just going to click and drag that onto my logo, and you see that creates it on either end of the logo. And then if I go back into transitions, I should be able to drag my cross dissolve between those two start clips. So let's play it back now. There's the logo.
Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ben.
There we go.
Today,
what I may actually do now, I'll just delete it again and shorten this blank space again, back down to the 3 seconds. And add the cross dissolve.
Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ben, and today is...
I quite like that, I'm happy with that. So that's the intro sorted. Now for the outro, we'll skim right to the end. So now I can go back into my YouTube library and find my end card, which is right here. What I have to do is drag that onto the end of the timeline. Now I retime this to 15 seconds because YouTube allows you 15 seconds. So automatically Final Cut has given me a 5-second clip. To retime that precisely to 15 seconds, I'm going to select the clip and then click on Control D, and you'll see under the viewer there, my time code has turned blue. All I'm going to do now is type in 1500, 15 seconds, hit enter, and there we go, we've got a 15-second clip. Then what I'm going to do is shorten that end clip a little bit, and then go back to my transitions menu and throw a cross dissolve on there. Let's play that back.
See you in the next video.
There we go. That is exactly how I want my video to end. Now that we've done that, we can look at our colour correction. So I'm going to go back to the start. I know that all of this has been shot in S-Log2, and I have a few LUTs that I use particularly for S-Log2. So I have a certain way of doing this. It works for me, so I've just carried on doing it. It's very simple. So to start with, if I go into my titles menu, I've got a section there called adjustment layers, long, medium and short. That's exactly what they are. That's a long one, that's a medium one, that's a short one in length. So I'm going to just take the long one, drag that on top of my timeline. This was actually a download from someone else on YouTube. For the life of me, I cannot remember who, but it's so handy. All I have to do now is select that title, go into my effects menu, and then under colour, I'm going to drag on a custom LUT as well as colour wheels. With that still selected, we're going to go into window at the top, workspaces, I've actually got my own colour workspace saved as a preset, but we're just going to go into colour and effects, which is pretty much the same. Here, what I like to do with my panels, if I click on view, I can change it so that I'm only looking at 3 different panels, and automatically Final Cut has given me the vector scope nice and big on the left hand side, which is how I want it. Then on the right hand side, I'm going to select RGB Parade for one, and then Waveform and Luma. So this might look complicated, but trust me, it's actually pretty simple. We'll start with the Luma chart here. This basically shows you where all the light and dark patches are relative to the image that's in front of you. So if we scrub through the timeline, you can see it changing. This chart works just like a histogram, so the lower the level, the darker it is, the higher the level, the lighter it is. You can see that there's a lot of dark in the centre. Obviously I'm wearing a black t-shirt. Above that we also have the lightest areas, which is my skin tones, and then just sort of lightish in between either side. That is exactly the same with the RGB Parade, only with these ones it's showing the reds, the greens and the blues. On the left hand side, the vector scope, this is what I use to pick my white balance. So to start with, let's make sure our title is selected. We'll go over here to the film strip, and then under the custom LUT, I'm going to select my LUT. So for a few months now, I've been using Phantom LUTs. They're a great package, seriously. I'll leave the original link and the fellow who created them as well. He's got his own YouTube channel explaining all about them. I'll leave all that in the description below. So this guy created LUTs for both S-Log2 and S-Log3, and for each of them he made 2 LUT packs. The first pack is for ARRI looks, which is pretty cool. You can make your Sony S-Log footage look like ARRI footage. And the second pack is filmic looks, which I also really like. So to start with, we're just going to choose a neutral look. Let's see how much this changes instantly. Doesn't look amazing. Just like a Lightroom preset, a LUT is not a one-click fix. It never is. So what we're going to do now is go into our colour wheels. The first thing that I do here is make sure my white balance is correct. So just using temperature and tint underneath the wheels, looking at the vector scope, right in the centre is where you want all the white bits to be, ideally, or as much as possible. So I'm just going to play with them a little bit. I think it actually might have been bang on. I've got a big light here so I can't really see the screen quite properly. But then we're going to go onto our wheels. The master wheel at top, I don't really tend to use that at all. I tend to use the highlights, shadows and midtones. So what I'm going to do to start with is boost my highlights just a little bit, and then judging by the RGB Parade as well as the Luma, I'm going to bring my shadows down a bit, down towards the 0 line. That's starting to look better already. I'll boost my highlights again a little bit, and then the midtones, this is where you can really start to add a bit more contrast into your image. So I'm going to drag it down a bit to start with. Yeah, that looks about right. Let's let that play through.
I'm going to make a video to show you how I make videos. I already know there's going to be a ton.
Okay, so what we can do to see what we've done so far is if we go back over here, we can click the effects tab there to switch off everything back to the S-Log. How much different is that? We'll click that back on, and then we can see individually what the colour wheels are doing. And then the LUT itself. So I think I need to play around a bit more in the colour wheels on this one with the saturation more than anything. So I'm going to try boost the shadows a little bit to start with, and then the highlights. and a little bit on the mid-tones as well. And that's looking a lot better than the S-Log. So all I need to do now with this title is drag it to the start and then drag it to the end of this intro clip. There we go. Ooh. Once I turn around to see my desk, you can see that I've really oversaturated it a bit.
This space with my mum, so all of this behind me.
To be fair to myself, comparing the back end of this office to my desk end of this office, there is quite a difference in saturation and colour anyway, so I think it's actually not too bad. I'm going to leave it there for that clip, and then basically that's all I need to do for the other clips as well. Generally speaking, when I'm doing just my desk videos, it's one scene, it's all lit identically, and I can just copy that one adjustment layer over the whole video. We're nearly there. I've done all my colour grading, including my B-roll clips. If you have clips attached to the top of your timeline, you can just drag that adjustment layer up above them. If it doesn't quite match, you can just cut it where the B-roll starts and then adjust it individually. So the one thing that I've got left is to add some titles. So I'm just going to do one as an example. In this final clip, you can hear the thunderstorm, the rain hitting the roof of this garage.
Hit and subscribe down the bottom corner there, as well as the notification bell.
So there's not much I can do about that. I have to record when I'm able to. So I'm just going to add a title. I'm going to click on the timeline where I want it. Then I'm just going to click on Control T, and that'll add the title. I'm just going to double click it to be able to add my text. That's a thunderstorm you can hear. And then I'm going to select it all and just change my font. I, for some reason, always go for American typewriter. And then I'm just going to drag it towards the bottom of the frame and click anywhere, and you're done. I also like to add a cross dissolve to my titles. So again, that's just a case of dragging it across onto the title, and then I'll just shorten it a little bit, probably in half, and done.
That is how I make my videos. I hope you liked this video. If you did, then please do consider hitting subscribe down the bottom corner there, as well as notification.
Sorted. The final step now is music. Personally, I use Artlist. There's a great selection of stuff on there. I'm not affiliated with them at all. Although saying that, I do have a link down below to get 2 months for free. I'm not actually sure if I get anything from that or not. I might do though, just in case. So to get out of our colour grading workspace, we can just hit Command 0. That takes us back to the default. So I have a separate audio library here, and in there you can see an event called Artlist. This is where I keep all my Artlist music, and then it's just a case of finding a track and sticking it on. I quite like this one, so I'm just going to make sure I've got the whole thing selected and then drag it underneath my timeline to the start. Generally speaking, any music that you get will be very loud when you first get it into Final Cut, especially compared to your audio files. So straight away along the bottom we can see that it's clipping a lot. So I'm going to tone it down immediately to about -10. Let's see how that sounds from the beginning.
Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ben, and today is a slightly different video.
So it's alright volume wise until the bass comes in around here. So to adjust the volume, I'm going to use keyframes. This just makes it a much smoother transition in volume compared to a straight cut. So I've found my point there. Now either side of that, I'm going to hold Option and click. You'll see how my cursor changes, and then I'll add a keyframe there, and the keyframe afterwards. Then this second point after the fact, I'm going to drag down to about -21. See how that sounds. Ben, and today is a slightly different video. I'm going to make a video to show you how I make videos. If you think it's still a bit too abrupt, you can just drag the keyframes along the timeline and that will make it a more even, slower transition. Channel, if you're new here, my name is Ben, and today is a slightly different video. I'm going to make a video to show you how I make videos. That sounds alright. So I'm just going to play through now, make sure that the song doesn't get too loud at any points. If it does, I can just use more keyframes. Okay, so I've done all that. Now, towards the end of the video, I love to have the music finish with the end credit cards. So I've got the volume pretty low still, as I'm still talking at the end of the video. And then as it fades into the end card, I will use keyframes again to lift the volume, like so. And then at the end, I'll basically take the volume up just before it starts clipping. This song does end quite quietly, so I'll take it just up to 0, which is where it was originally. Let's see how that does it.
Get creative, and I'll see you in the next video.
And that pretty much finishes with the end card. So I'll just trim the end of that off and we are done. Now, if you've been working in the original or optimized media, you don't need to do anything with this next bit. If you've been working with proxy media, you'll need to go into View and switch from proxy to optimized in order to be able to export. So now all we do is in the top right corner, we see the export button and we want a master file. You may get a load more options up there, but I've personalized mine, I've got rid of most of them. So under info, you can title your project. Oh dear. How I make my YouTube videos. That was horrendous typing. You can add some keywords if you like. So I'm going to add YouTube, video making, tutorial, and then I always add the month and year as well. So it's April 20. That's just a personal thing. Under settings, I always export in H.264 and just check the resolution 1920 by 1080. Or if it's 4K, it will be in 4K. I always export in 1080 purely because these are for YouTube and my internet connection is horrendous. The last 4K video that I uploaded took around 17 hours to upload, just for reference. And under action, I've got mine set to save only. And then roles, you don't need to edit anything there. Then we can click next. And this is where we choose where we want it to export to. So I've got my own folder on my desktop. I've got edits video. It'll go into this folder and then click save. And you can see in the top left there, the progress bar, that is starting to export the video. So now that it's finished exporting, we'll get a tab up in Notification Center where we can either close the tab or we can show the file in our Finder. And right there in my edits and video folder, there is my file. Let's make sure it plays.
Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ben. Look around, I'll keep that off.
So there we are, that is how I edit my videos. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you may have learned something from it. If you have any questions, do leave a comment down below. If you liked it, do give it a like, and if you'd like to see more, hit subscribe down there. This is just my method of editing video. After so long, you get into a certain workflow and you end up just sticking to it unless something really isn't working. For me, over the last 6 months or so, I've really enjoyed this workflow, especially with the Sony footage. For you, it might differ. Everyone finds their own way eventually, but the only way to find out is by doing. So start making videos, start editing them, try a few different techniques, see what works for you, and leave some links down below. I'd love to see them. So until the next one, be good, stay safe, get creating, and I'll see you in the next video.